guy on a curve, passing on a curve. Morning everybody, today is Friday, December 8th, 7:22 a.m. in the morning. I wanted to wait till the sunrise, but I just want to get out of this place.
Head west toward Alberta 9 West.
So the safety meeting starts in 8 minutes, but I'm not going to work, as I mentioned yesterday in the short
Head north toward 2nd Street Southeast.
in the short video.
Turn right onto 2nd Street Southeast, then turn right onto South Railway Avenue.
They basically called me to the office and told me that they have to let me.
Alberta 56 South, then turn right onto Alberta.
They have to let me go without any reason, and I thought I was doing a good work. So it's very frustrating when you don't know what you did wrong. But they said something about performance review, and I did damage that solar panel, right? But that was like a few weeks ago, and we did an accident report, and they put me back to work with the same panels, and I didn't have any other issues. So we're going back home to Calgary. But anyway, so how the day started? The day started as usual. We had a safety meeting in the morning, and then I warmed up my machine. Usually that's what I do, you know, or did. Before the safety meeting, I would arrive at 7 o'clock. The job started at 7:30. Most guys are there at 7, if not earlier, because then parking becomes a problem, and you have to park outside of the gate. You know, you have to walk far. Let's say you have a lunch box in your car, you know, during lunch. But then it's much quicker to check out, because if you park inside, sometimes lately was taking like, I don't know, 10-15 minutes to go through the gate, because there's so many cars in front of you and everybody has to be scanned. I don't know, it took forever. And so sometimes actually it was cool to leave your car outside and then just walk in. But this time I came early, so I went to the regular parking lot on site, went to my machine, checked it out, started it, let it run, and then went to the office, as I usually do. Like around 7:15 I would go in, grab a sheet of field level hazard assessment, because you have to fill out that like every day, you know, kind of like what dangers are on site, how dangerous it is. Like you label it like 1, 2, 3, or 4, you know, like 1 being the most serious, and then how you plan to get rid of these hazards, you know. So it's like a good exercise on paper, how you stay safe and don't get into accidents, don't kill anybody. And all equipment operators, they have to do this, and it's like lots of writing on that sheet. All right, here we go. We're going. So remember I said during one of my previous videos, I was saying that when you go north from Drumheller to get to the site, you go through the same thing, like these crazy hills or mountains and very winding road. And the same thing when you go south, like I do now. And it's very slippery today. Good thing I have winter tires. And so yeah, nothing special was said at the safety meeting. Nobody was pointing fingers at me. Like basically everything was cool. And then I went to my machine, grabbed my fuel tank, and started doing my my fuel rounds. Filled up a bunch of generators, light towers, frost fighters, you know, stuff like that. And those frost fighters, man, they're so thirsty. Like a big tank, and after 8 hours I would check on them, they're 50% empty. And so I told one of the supervisors, said, okay, I filled up everything, gonna top up the tank and then come back to top up the frost fighters around 4 p.m. because these guys were working like 24/7. Like really, it's a big push to before the holiday, and all these electricians, you know, they're working. That's why we needed, yesterday I needed to bring a light tower, I mean the day before. And so yeah, so this is it. Everything was cool, no accidents. And then 2 o'clock, oh yeah, and there were a couple of generators that used gas, and so I had to go to the tool crib and borrow a gas, you know, little one of those red tanks. Yeah, the road doesn't look too good. What's the temperature? -3. And I went to the fuel island. We had one tank with gasoline, and that's what one guy got fired for, right? When he grabbed the wrong tank, he didn't notice that the code, UN code, was 1203 instead of 1202 for diesel, and he filled up that one with diesel, and so he made like a mixture of gas and diesel, and he filled up 5 machines, 5 excavators. And of course they had to call a mechanic and pump out all the stuff from their tanks, and so he got canned right away. But I did not do anything you know, so stupid. I don't know. So anyway, yeah, so I got that jerry can, as they call it, and went to the site, went to the spot where electricians were working there, and I said, somebody told me you have a gas powered generator, so they showed me the one that was like half empty. So it was pretty tricky filling it up, you know. It's been a while since I used one of these jerry cans, but I did it. And then I took the jerry can back to the tool crib, and I'm thinking, okay, what shall I do? I texted a couple of supervisors asking if they have any work. Both guys said no, and so I'm thinking, okay, I'm just gonna go grab my forks. Oh yeah, because they wouldn't allow me to get a jerry can with forks, because, you know, we did, like, a guy gave me like a strap, and we wanted just to strap down the can to the forks, and there was a safety lady there. She says no, grab a bucket and basically carry the can and the bucket. And so, you know, I got accustomed to my set of forks because they had foam on them, like a pieces of foam, like hot foam attached to the front, so that, you know, you don't damage those boxes. And I just turned around to go there with the empty bucket to swap it for the forks, which I left where the electricians worked, and my phone rings, and it's the supervisor that I usually work with on fuel delivery, who I thought was pretty happy with my work, you know. I was going, you know, out of my way to be proactive. As an example, so I thought I was doing a good job, like seriously. Like to give you an example, let's say he says, Sergei, could you please grab a light tower and bring it to the south end of the site? So I would pick up I would find a light tower that, you know, that he told me to pick it up. I would shut it off. I would lower the mast, turn off the lights, shut it off. And then, even though he never mentioned that, I stop at the fuel island to top up the fuel in the light tower, because of course, what's the point of having a light tower if it's low on fuel, right? He never told me that. I did it by myself because I know that these people, you know, they're working through the night, they rely on this. And so I topped up the fuel tower, took it to the spot where the electricians worked. Again, those same guys that I used the jerry can with today. And I asked the guy, I said, you want me to start the generator? So I was able by myself to start the generator, turn the mast the way he wanted it, the lights to point, turn on all the lights. And with that particular one, it's a bit tricky. You have to go through the menu there and then just select on. There was like 4 lights. And so I did all that, you know. And also another kind of like initiative I developed was, I always was at these fuel islands, right? Like filling up my cube, and there's a small generator running next to the tank, which powers the pump, right? And a couple of times the generator shut down or it ran out of fuel, and then nobody can pump, you know. And so once I had to use my own tank because I had like 30% of fuel still, so I used my own tank to put a little bit of fuel into that generator, restart it, and then I would fill up my tank, my portable tank from the main pump. Yeah, I don't like this road, you know. That's why I'm driving so slow, and there's a guy behind me. And so yeah, I was being proactive, you know. I was filling up everything, and then, you know, like when I was before I got the jerry can yesterday, I was sitting, nobody has work for me. So I thought, wait, I did all the generators there for the electricians, but there were a couple of light towers because it was already daytime, right? So they turned them off, but I never checked the fuel in there, you know, this morning. So I thought, hey, I have nothing better to do. Nobody's giving me any tasks. So I drove down there again with a tank, and I topped up the 2 light towers, basically made it ready for the night. Actually, one of them was full, but the other one was, I don't know, like 75%. And so I did that. Again, nobody told me to. Oh, and then I see one guy, another team also had a frost fighter set up, and they're not part of the other electricians that had all these frost fighters and generators, right? But this guy, I see like somebody set up a new frost fighter, and they're heating the cables there in the ground. And I went over to the guy, I said, hey, you want me to top it up with fuel? And we looked at the gauge, and it pretty much shows empty, but it was still running. So I gave him like, I don't know, 150 liters of fuel. The guy thanked me because you know they had these tents set up around like where they're working, because you know it's cold, right? And so they would take that frost fighter and that huge hose that's coming out, they would put under inside the tent. And so this way, of course, you know, like that's why they were so happy to see me, you know, most of the time. And so yeah, I kind of like had a routine going, and so until lunch I would be doing all these generators, and then there's a break at 10, and then lunch is at 12, and then after lunch, recently I was working with another supervisor, just moving these boxes from one spot to another, and there's a bunch of these. I'm like, look, I think it's ice. Guy sitting on my bumper. It's icy, it's slippery, and these guys are like, what's your rush? I hope he doesn't end up in the ditch. And now there's a pickup truck on the bumper of that guy who was sitting on my bumper. But some guys were saying in the comments under that shorty video I did yesterday, some people were saying it might be because of YouTube. And if that's so, this is the second time YouTube got me into trouble. Because if people who've been watching my channel for a long time, they know that that's how I was kicked out of Landstar. And it's funny that over there it was the same approach. You know, all of a sudden some compliance lady emails me, and I was moving an excavator. Like I'm under a load. From going from Canada to, I think I was going somewhere like Baltimore, yeah, Baltimore, Maryland, but from Western Canada, because I remember I was doing a video on this Minot, North Dakota, when I was leaving that nice truck stop over there, and I put the camera on top of my load just to show how the trailer was weaving, you know, at turns, and then I stopped to take the camera off, and I forgot, and I did not cut that part off where you see me coming up and grabbing the camera, you know. And so somebody forwarded that video to a manager, and so this lady calls me and starts checking on me. Basically, Sergei, I wanna have updates every morning on your location. Oh, and her title was saying Loss Prevention Department. Loss prevention. And usually these guys, it's when something is, you know, you hit something or you cause some damage. Basically, it's a ugly lady in terms of, you know, you don't want to be talking to these people. Because I see it says so-and-so Loss Prevention Department. What the heck? I didn't have any problems. Got loaded, was on my way to Baltimore, Maryland with this machine, right? But she wants to check on me every day, so I sent her status updates, and I said, what is this about? She would not tell me, right? So same approach is here. They don't tell you, and then when I delivered the machine, and she says, yeah, please let me know. Oh, you see, now the road is better. No ice, no snow. She says, please let me know when you deliver the machine. Very important. And that's when I sent her a picture. You know, a machine on the ground, the load is delivered. And that's when she says, Sergei, we have to let you go. What? You know, again, I thought I was doing a good job. I think I had like one ticket. I got a ticket when I was moving like a farm tractor, and I put 3 chains on it instead of required 4, and so they give me this was Ontario, and they give me like out of service for like 10 minutes, and then I corrected the problem. They let me go. But Landstar, they were so anal about these out of service, even like for 5 minutes. And I asked the cop, I said, why are you putting me out of service? I just fixed the problem. Well, you cannot drive like this because it's against the law, because it's over 10,000 pounds, considered heavy machine, must have 1 chain, 1 binder on each corner at least. But you know, I was green back then, I did not know. They don't teach you this in the driving school, or actually when I was trained to work on a flatbed, right? Nobody said this about what constitutes a heavy machinery, right? But that's what it is. In Ontario, anything over 10,000 pounds is considered heavy machinery, and it's a requirement that you must use 4 tie downs, and they must have a certain WLL, which means that for heavy machinery in Canada, you cannot use 3/18 chain. Well, what is it? 5/18. Basically, it has to be 5/16. So it has to be 3/8. You know, the next bigger size, because that has the required workload limit. But in US, they don't have this. In US, it just says must have 4 tie downs. And of course, some guys cheat. They use 1 chain with 2 binders, and you can get a ticket like that. But anyway, that's like one thing I had. And Landstar sent me to Florida to kind of like a boot camp for 3 days. It was, you know, free training, kind of like a retraining on how to secure loads. And this was already specifically for, you know, heavy equipment, because at that time I already had my RGN trailer. And so yeah, the same approach. You see, like this lady, right? She would not tell me the reason why she was checking on me every day, but she wanted to know where I am and when I'm delivering, and only then she told me that, you know, they don't want me to work for Landstar, right? So I'm guessing they don't want to tell you in case you decide to do something stupid, like, you know, steal the machine, or, you know, cause some damage, to kind of like a revenge kind of thing, you know. And so same thing here, right? So this guy calls me, the same supervisor I'm working with on fuel. Hey Sergei, how are you? Like, very nice, very polite. So yeah, I'm good. How are you? Oh, I'm good. What are you up to? I said, well, I just returned the jerry can here because I had to fuel a couple of gas power generators, and I said now I'm heading south to the south end of the site to get my forks back, because I said safety wanted me to have a bucket to carry the jerry can. And he says, oh, okay, that's fine. Listen, there's a guy here that wants to talk to you. So basically, when you come back, stop by the office and talk to Jim. I said, Jim, okay. I said, hey, I'm at the corner here. I'm like 5 minutes away. You want me to turn around and go back to the office? And then I can get my forks later? And he says, no, keep doing what you're doing. Just grab the forks and then see Jim. And of course, it's like 2 kilometers to the south end of the site in a skid steer, maximum speed 15, speed limit inside the site 10 kilometers per hour, right? And so I'm driving and I'm thinking, man, so what is this? I never heard that name before. Like, who the heck is this guy Jim? You know, like, are they promoting me? Maybe they want to ask me. Like, honestly, that was my first thought. I thought, because you never know. I saw one guy who was always on a skid steer and working with the same through the same temp agency like me, and then I see he's inside a big packer, you know. And so I thought, okay, maybe they want me to operate a different machine, you know, maybe they gonna, because I was hoping to get back into a wheel loader, not as big as that one. I really hate that one with the joystick. I don't know, it was difficult for me to operate it. But the bucket is okay. Like, give me a wheel loader with a steering wheel and a joystick for the bucket or forks, and I can do regular stuff, you know, load trucks, level, dirt, backfill, stuff like that, stockpile. You know, now I have almost 400 hours of experience, and so that was my first thought. I thought they would offer me kind of like, because they were talking about this when our first day, they were saying that, and actually I gave them my resume because of this. I sent them a copy of my resume to show that, you know, I worked in trucking, so maybe they would give me a chance on a rock truck. No chance, no. And we had like 3 or 4 rock trucks, and those are awesome, you know. So for me, that would be like probably the best career path, you know, to get into a rock truck. But it didn't happen. And so that was my first thought, that, and then I thought, man, maybe it has something to do with that solar panel incident that I damaged, right? But they kept me working. Like 2 weeks after that, nobody said anything, right? And again, I was always being proactive, trying to be helpful, you know, going beyond what I was asked to do. And so, you know, because of this, so basically it's 2 kilometers down to grab my forks, and then 2 kilometers back, it was miserable, you know, like I did not know what was going on. And then of course I started thinking, you know, no, it cannot be another machine. Maybe it has something to do with, maybe I did something. And I remember on the day before, at the end of the shift, when the guy asked me to bring a light tower to those electricians, right? When I went to get it, that particular light tower, it's, you know, it's pretty tall, so you cannot just carry it like normal on your forks. And I just grab it from the side, you know, like with the wheel between the forks. But you cannot carry it normally, let's say just 6-10 inches off the ground, because then you cannot see anything, because it's tall. So the only way to carry that light tower is to raise your forks so that, you know, you stoop like this, and you can see the road in front. And so that light tower have to be at, like, you know, I don't know, basically maybe 2 meters height, you know. And I had to go, this was like the end of the shift, and I had to go through a busy area, and there was some cars already leaving. I don't know, it was like 4:30. Some people were already leaving, I don't know why, but anyway, I created a bit of a bottle jack over there. And I remember there was somebody was either honking at me or somebody was shouting something, but I went super careful with that light tower in the air, you know, super careful, super slow, didn't hit anything. And nobody said anything on that day when I delivered that light tower, right? So maybe it was this, because either that or YouTube, because yeah, I stopped, I did not make any videos from the site, but I kept talking about it, which I thought was okay, because, you know, this is my job. Why I cannot talk about my job from my hotel room or inside the car, right? Like what I'm doing now. But maybe they, like some people were saying, a lot of these construction companies, they don't like people telling their secrets, you know. But I don't know. I actually just before this, I sent an email to this liaison, so to speak, like the lady from the temp agency. I said, hey, I think they're pretty happy with my work. I want to keep working here past the 3 months, because originally when I saw this job posting, the ad said 3 months, you know, and I felt so lucky that I got in with, you know, very little practical experience, but I got hired. And so yeah, and so I said, I talked to them, I talked to the supervisors, you know, how long this project will be going, and they said probably till July next year. And so I emailed this lady. I said, hey, if possible, I would like to keep working. And maybe that email had something to do with it, you know, because I asked her, and then she replied, and she wrote back. She said, yeah, it seems they are happy with your work. But I'm guessing maybe when I sent that email, maybe she talked to somebody at the company just to double check, you know, like, hey, this guy wants to keep working after the new year. Are you guys okay with that? And maybe that what triggered, you know, the review. So I was thinking maybe they do some kind of like a monthly review, and, you know, when they have a big meeting, all the supervisors get together, right? And they let's say, like this guy was saying, actually, the guy who kicked me out, he said, well, we do a performance review, and it's just one of the ways to cut costs. That's what he gave me, like, you know, like some obscure reason. But let's say they, you know, when we started, we worked 12 hours a day for like, what, I don't know, 3 weeks. And then we all got an email I got an email from the temp agency saying that everybody now will be working 9 hours, 7:30 to 5, and then Friday even 7:30 to 4. You know, so and a bunch of people left because of this, because, you know, most guys were from out of town, and they said they came specifically for this 12-hour shifts, which, you know, I did not understand. Honestly, I was a bit, on the one hand, of course, we lost almost like $2,000 because of that, because then there's no overtime. But on the other hand, I was happy to go home to the hotel early, you know, because 12 hours was a bit too much. And then the posting that I originally replied to, it was the other solar farm run by the same company, but that job already finished. But that's where they worked like 7:30 to 4, and that's what the ad said, like 8 to 9 hours. And I was happy to do that. And then when I talked to the recruiter, oh, look at this snow. When I talked to the recruiter from the temp agency, she said, no, that was a different solar farm. This one, it's 12 hours. And so, yeah, so basically they started cutting hours, right? But then all of a sudden, after we switched to 9 hours, all of a sudden they asked us to work weekends, right? So I worked, just again, right, to show what kind of a bad worker I was. I worked 3 weeks non-stop, because it was first weekend, then second weekend we kept working 7 days with no breaks, and only after week 3 I was able to go home. And then they asked me to work night shifts, which is totally crazy, to mix night shifts and day shifts. And originally I said no, but then I said okay, I'll do it, just out of curiosity to see how it works. And then again, the temp agency tell us we have 2 breaks, right, at 10 and 2, and the lunch break at 12. And so I did the same thing here. At night we started it was 7 to 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. and so instead of taking 10 p.m. break, I told the supervisor, I said, I'll take a 30-minute break at 3. And so I took the lunch break at midnight, and then at 3 I went into my car, set my alarm for 25 minutes, and I took a nap. And that's when this guy knocks on my door and he says, you cannot do that. Like, you know, that might be another reason. So probably when they were talking about me at this secret meeting, you know, reviewing who they can cut because they're trying to reduce the salaries. Okay, who we can cut? Oh, this guy, you know, he damaged the solar panel. We caught him napping in his car during a night shift, and he was making some videos. Wait, what? He was making videos, and we are paying him to make videos? So yeah, it's probably a combination of all of this, you know. Well, look at this. This is not good. So maybe it's a good thing that I left early, because the sunrise it's like at 8:30. But I couldn't sleep. I was tossing and turning all night because, you know, I feel very bad. Kind of like a kid, you know, who was put in the corner. But they don't give you a reason why you're in the corner. Oh yeah, so to continue with the story, sorry, I digressed. So the guy says, see Jim, right? So I drive back with my forks, no idea what they want. So I park the machine not too far from the office, walk into the office, and then this guy, the safety supervisor there, and I said, hey, I was asked to talk to Jim, and he points to a scrawny little guy, I don't know, maybe like 35 years old, I don't know, 5 feet with a hat, tall, you know, like a kid. And he looks at me, he says, Sergei? I said, yeah. And I come over, I'm not sure, like, shall we shook each other hands? So I actually extended my hand, he shook my hand, and right then he says, without like, hi, how are you doing, you know, so all he said was, Sergei? I said, yeah. I shook his hand, and then he says, we have to let you go. I was like stunned, you know, all of a sudden, with no warning, in the middle of the day, and it's like 2:30 in the afternoon, so they didn't even let me finish, you know, like, let me finish my shift, right? And then say, hey, basically don't come back. So it's like I was so dangerous that they had to cut me loose right then and there. Like, and that's why I was, you know, I couldn't sleep all night. I was just wondering, what the heck, what was so bad I did that they had to just drag me like that? And then basically this guy says, okay, where's your machine? Where's your car? I said, well, the machine is actually parked close to my car, but I said, I still have some things inside the Bobcat. I said, here's the key, but I have my seat cushion, I have my headphones in there. Okay, I'll go with you. So it's kind of like a, you know, like in prison, right? So he walks with me to the machine. I grab my stuff, put the key in the ignition. I said, okay, the key is there. And then he walks with me to my car. I said, do I have time to change my boots? I don't want to drive in the boots. So, you know, I usually take off the boots, you know, my dirty safety boots after shift. I put them in the box in the truck, and then I put on my sneakers. And he says, yeah, it's okay, I'll spot you, because there were a couple of cars there very, you know, parked in an improper way in the parking lot, so I had to go like this. And he says, I'll spot you so that you can get out. And I said, okay. So now I'm just driving to the gate, and he says, yeah, I'll meet you there. And so he's walking next to me, and I'm slowly driving my car like 100 meters, you know, to the gate. So he escorts me like I'm a prisoner in my car to the gate, and then says, where is your ID card? So I give him my ID card, and the security guard scans it one last time, like check out, opens the gate, and this gym guy says, have a good day. For some reason we didn't shake hands, and then they open the gate, I go out, and they close the gate behind me. The site is now secure, free of Mr. Dratchev. Wow, unbelievable. And so yeah, turns out just like one guy was asking me about land staff versus own authority. So it turns out there's no job security whatsoever, at least with my limited experience at this particular job site. You can get canned for like any number of reasons, and they don't even have to tell you. Just like this guy said, I said, hey, so can you give me a reason? He says, we don't have to, it's within 3 months. That's what this guy said when I asked him for a reason. But then as we were walking, I was kind of like being friendly. I said, hey, I never saw you here before. Are you kind of like the termination manager? And he says, yeah, I get to be the asshole. Those are his words, not mine. I said, okay. But then as we were walking towards my machine, he was saying something about, no, at least he gave me something. He says, well, it's a performance review, it's an attempt to cut costs. So basically, and I said, hey, that, I remember the last guy you fired, he put gas into excavators instead of diesel. I said, I don't think I did anything bad like that. And he wouldn't say anything. This guy would not budge, would not give me a reason, and so just escorted me like a criminal to the gate. And I thought of maybe offering him to sit inside my car, because it's like, you know, 100, 200 meters from the office to the gate. But, you know, I had stuff in here, I had stuff in the back, and so he just chose to walk next to me. And yeah, weird, I'm telling you. Weird, weird, weird. Oh, and one thing I wanted to mention is the guys I worked with. If somebody's watching this video, I really enjoyed, you know, learning and working with a bunch of nice guys. There's only a couple of people that were really, I don't know, like aggressive. Normally you ask somebody a question, just like I was asked before, like, hey, I'm at the fuel island, and the guy shows up and he's asking me questions, you know, like about fuel, or actually, yeah, where do you get fuel? Where do you get? I said, you know where you get DEF? No. So you see those lights over there? There's a container. That's where all the supplies are. So basically, the guy was asking me questions. I was happy to provide the info, you know. But this other guy, I'm talking about when I started, right? Like week 1, I had no idea what I was doing, and most guys were very helpful when I was asking questions. But one guy was very, you know, like would not give me an answer, would just walk away, you know, and answer with a question. Like, let's say I was trying to start this John Deere, and most of them, they have a code, and people keep changing codes, and that's what they were talking about at during safety meetings. They said, if we catch somebody change the code again, because it cost them a lot of money to change it back to the factory code, because, you know, if you don't know that code, like the machine doesn't have a key. So when you click the green button, ignition, on the left here above your head, there's a screen and it says, please enter your PIN, and I use the keypad to enter the PIN. And if you enter it too many times incorrectly, the machine locks out. Basically, it's you know, says something like PIN entered too many times, and it shuts down. And I tried all the codes I knew that people told me that, and then I see this guy walking by, you know, and I say, hey, do you know the code for this machine? And he snaps at me like, why would I know the code for that machine? And I see he's getting into a Bobcat. But basically, you know, whenever you ask him, he's like biting my head off. And so I just stopped talking to this guy. No hello, no nothing, you know. But most guys were super helpful, very knowledgeable, you know, nice guys, you know. Mostly young people, of course. The older guys like me, I only saw them usually with I saw one older guy in a rock truck. he was operating a rock truck, and then a bunch of old guys were in excavators, because you know those were the most popular machines on site, and these guys were doing pretty much all the heavy lifting, right? Digging trenches, doing stuff. But the rest, like skid steer operators, mostly were young guys. Wheel loader guy, you know, like that big wheel loader I tried for one day was a guy probably in his 30s. So everybody was young, you know. And the management was probably also younger than me, you know. All right, I know this spot. This is where you turn.
In 600 meters, turn left to stay on Alberta 9 West. Signs for Yurikon on Calgary.
Over here everything is not red, but it means it's a slowdown. Probably some accidents or something. It's not a good weather to be on driving. But I see at least now it's getting light.
Turn left to stay on Alberta 9 West. Signs for Yurikon on Calgary.
Oh, by the way, I got yesterday I was researching gas prices, and I was surprised to see that this
on Alberta 9 West for 31 kilometers.
This Shell over there in Drumheller was selling regular gas for $1.29 Canadian. $1.29. I don't remember the last time the price was so low, but then the 89 was already like 30 cents higher, but 87 was super cheap, you know, $1.29. So I filled up the entire, the full tank because I was running very low. I wouldn't have enough. By the way, here, what is this? This is Centex. Yeah, $1.29. No, $1.23. Wow, $1.23 for gas, $1.82 for diesel, and of course that's Canadian. $1.82. Which reminds me why and one of the reasons I sold that truck and trailer, right, and got out, is huge costs. And some people would not believe me, but I remember when I'm doing my books, when I was a trucker, when I'm doing my books at the end of the year, I was surprised to see that, I don't know, my net was like $5,000, you know, especially permits, because I was doing oversized loads, right? Especially permits was super expensive. I noticed right away after I switched to that 60 ton, actually wasn't totally, at my case, for my particular operation, when I was working on a spot market, so to say, right, I was picking loads off the load board. Oh, that means it's sunrise. So I didn't have a dedicated customer, right? I was always working with brokers, and only a couple of times I worked with direct shippers, right? People ask me to move something, right? But it was hard to get loads that would pay enough to cover the expenses, right? And especially since I was doing cross-border freight, which again comes with extra expenses. You know, you have to have your transponder for the border, you have to pay the, you know, toll when you have an oversized load. You know, the bridges have a toll like $200, $150, right? And you know, permits, but permits were like killing me after, especially when I was doing, like, you know, let's say a few times I moved 100, 110, 120,000 pounds. Man, that's when I learned that weight was the biggest issue, you know, weight. And so basically by the end I did not want to use the Jeep and the booster in the States, because it was way too expensive, you know, like you needed escorts, pilots, where in Canada, like I could go, let's say I a few times I moved something from Ontario, no, let's say from Ohio to Alberta. And when I ran the permits, I used this permit site, right, where you can estimate your permit cost. And it was like $50 US a month, but it was worth it, every dollar, because you can run your route to see which way was cheaper for permits. And if, let's say, Ohio to Alberta, I can go through US, right, and then cross into Alberta from Montana, or I can cross into Ontario and then go on the top through Canada. And it was always way cheaper to go through Canada, even though of course it's longer, maybe, I don't know, 200, 300, 400 miles, so you burn more fuel, and fuel is more expensive on the Canadian side, right? In US, diesel was always cheaper, but it was too expensive, you know, like that's what I learned. Running with a Jeep and booster in the States the costs were prohibitive. So I remember from, let's say, from Bolton, right, like quite often I would go to the Ritchie Brothers in Bolton, Ontario, just north of Toronto, and let's say pick up a machine and deliver it to the port. Like, let's say somebody bought it from overseas, like a typical story. You know, they bought it at the auction, now it goes to Africa or something like that, and you deliver it to Baltimore. Like, why are these guys so slow here? Very bad road. And if it snows like this in Drumheller, they would shut down the site. You know, that's what happens, because it becomes too slippery for rubber tracked skid steers. And most excavators have rubber tracks, and then rock trucks. I saw rock trucks sliding. So it became unsafe, so they shut down the site. Unless, like one supervisor says, unless you want to stay as a laborer. I said, no, thank you. And so, yeah, so I remember, so if the load was so heavy that I needed the Jeep and the booster, and I would be like 105 feet long or something like that, it cost me $3,000 in permits and escorts, US, to do 500 miles. And when I talk about this with brokers, they were like, well, this guy, he has a budget, you know, $6,000. Like, there was let's say a load, I don't know, 110,000 pounds, you know, like needs 9 axles, right? And I said, and the guy was paying, yeah, like $6,000 or $7,000 US. And I said, are you aware that the permits and escorts would be like $3,000? You know? Well, the customer has a budget. And I would say, no, how did he come up with that budget? You know? No, actually, it was like, let's say permits were $3,000 and they were paying, like, I think like $6,000 for a super heavy big machine. So basically you end up with $3,000, which is like $6 per mile, which is pretty okay. But no, I think it was less than that. It was like $2,000, you know, difference. I think that, yeah, it was like $5,000 that they were paying. And I said, the permits are $3,000. You want me to do it for $2,000? And that's even not taking into account the fuel. And of course, that Kenworth, man, was a huge difference in a negative way compared to the Mack I had before. Even though Mack, of course, lacked the power, but Mack average was like just less than 6 miles a gallon, whereas the K-Whopper was like 4.5. It was crazy. And that's, of course, that, you know, added to the cost. Man, I'm super happy that I paid what was it, almost $2,000 for this, maybe $1,500 for the winter tires. I feel so much better with winter tires, man. I will keep doing this every winter. Like, this is the first time I have winter tires on a vehicle. Normally I would use all season ones, but this is so much better, you know, like very nice grip, super nice. Oh, and the Dodge dealer keeps pushing me, you know, texting me and emailing me, hey Sergey, we want to put you in a Challenger. Challenger or Charger. He says, last call, Challenger, Charger. I said, guys, you know, look at that. Did you see that? Freaking guy on a curve, passing on a curve. Wow, almost hit me. And that's why you have to have your camera on, you know. And my dash cam is off now, but that's why you always have to have a dash cam rolling for a situation like this, because then, you know, let's say something happens and that guy would say, well, he went into my lane, he hit me. You know? Like I went into his lane. Or he was driving, you know, recklessly, moved into the opposing traffic lane. No, wait a second, officer, here's my dash cam. You want to see for yourself? And so yeah, they wanted me to come in tomorrow, Saturday, to talk about the Challenger and Charger, and I'm like, okay, I'll just go to, you know, to look at the car, but and now of course, you know, I lost my job. Like, how do you basically, it's not gonna happen. But they still have that Hellcat. You would not believe it. Like 6 months later, they still cannot sell it. It's still deal of the month. It's they dropped another grand, I think, of the price. Now it's like 96,000 Canadian. Nobody wants it, again, because it has summer tires, you know, like the idiots. They should advertise, you know, they should get winter tires and then you know, sell the car with winter tires, and then say that it also has summer performance tires, you know. So, but they're trying to sell it with summer tires in Alberta in December, and surprisingly there's no takers, right? Because yeah, it's a rear wheel drive car, 700, what was it, 7 horsepower, 6.2 supercharged engine. Like, where you gonna drive with a speed that requires 700 horsepower? Like, even this car, I don't even remember what it has. I think it has like 200 horsepower, but I know it has a 2-liter turbocharged, not supercharged, but turbocharged engine, and that's what seems like what the trend is in the automotive industry. They're ditching the V8s, like 5-liter, 5.7, and they're switching to smaller but turbo. Like, I just read a news release by Chrysler or Stellantis saying that the next generation of Ram trucks will be powered by I think it's like a 3-liter V6 with dual turbos. And they said that engine, I think they call it Hurricane engine, it will have more power and more torque and better fuel economy than the current 5.7-liter engine, you know. And so the hell, even on this car, right, I went to a track and I was able to reach the cutoff speed, 182 kilometers an hour. I never tested that on a Hellcat, but even if a 2-liter turbo car can do 180, imagine the Hellcat. It's basically, it's a race car, you know, with 707 horsepower. You want to do like, I don't know, it'll probably do like 300 kilometers an hour somewhere if you go to a racetrack. But people don't want to race them because they're so expensive. And when they sell them, when people sell these Hellcats, quite often they would say, you know, never raced, no mods, because if it has been raced, it loses its value, you know. So it's like, I mentioned this before, so it's kind of like a paradox of a situation where you have such a nice muscle car, but you are afraid to use it because you don't want to add mileage. You know, like basically you cannot enjoy it, you cannot drive it fast because you'll get a ticket. There's nowhere to drive. No, we're gonna keep going. Why? I'm not turning here. This is kind of like an alternative route. If you go this way, this road goes west, and then you catch Highway 2. Man, I cannot see anything. Like, where's the road? So maybe, oh, okay, here at least it's cleaned. But wow, dangerous conditions. And so yeah, I'm not going to the dealership because of course they're just trying to get more money out of me. And now with no job, but I definitely want to get back into construction. And again, I was counting the hours, so I got this job and I survived for 2 months with only 50 hours of training at that wheel loader academy, right, which cost me 6,300 Canadian dollars for 3 weeks, 3-week course, and only basically it was 1 week in the classroom, and then 2 weeks it was pretty much 5 hours a day. Yeah, 10 days, 5 times 10. So it was super expensive, but I did get 50 hours of actual work, you know, doing real tasks. You know, like stockpiling, leveling, building a berm. You know, I really enjoyed it. And turned out I have a knack for this. You know, I never thought, because at one point I remember thinking, wait a second, why I cannot get a job after I got out of trucking? Like, is that really all Canada wants me to do? You know, like, is it all I'm good for? And turns out, no, I can operate heavy machinery. And so the situation now is actually better than 2 months ago when I only had 50 hours of experience. Now I'm gonna calculate exactly how many hours. Maybe I can go to my timesheets and see how many hours I work, but I think it's closer, like the total now is closer to 400 hours. That's way better than 50 hours, right? So if I was able to get this job with 50 hours of experience, so now it should be easier. And with the snow on the ground, there should be some snow plowing jobs, you know. I did that a couple of times at the job site. You know, when I was using the bucket to clean the snow, I really enjoyed it, you know. Of course, the trick is not to, you know, to position your bucket, not to dig a hole in the ground, but at the same time not to keep it too high, so then you don't collect any snow, right? So it requires a very gentle touch, like basically trial and error. Like I went once, it was too deep. I was cutting into topsoil. Then I lifted the bucket, I turn around, I see I basically did not pick up any snow. It was too high. And then I slowly put it down and I used the float function on this joystick. So I'm telling you, I learned so much during these 2 months. Now I'm not ashamed to say, yes, I am a skid steer operator. Give me a skid steer, give me a wheel loader. Because like I remember first day, like to be honest, I had no idea how to turn the beacon on.
In 600 meters, turn right onto Alberta
Like-
564 West. Signs for Delacour, Calgary.
Like I see everybody has, you know, that flashing light on the roof, right? Like how do I turn it on? I look everywhere. In the John Deere, it's not clearly marked. I think it had just like a triangle, you know, like emergency signal. And I had to ask somebody, like how do you...
Turn right onto Alberta 564 West.
Like on
Signs
a-
for Delacour, Calgary.
In a Bobcat, it's easier. The Bobcat, it actually has a picture.
Continue for 19 kilometers.
It has a picture of a beacon, and it's on the left side, on the vertical panel. Like totally different from John Deere, right? And all these little details, like okay, where's the, you know, where's the oil? Where's the fuel inlet? I had no idea, right? So, you know, you just walk around, you look, okay, where's the, okay, I found DEF on the left side of the body. Then, you know, there's a couple of covers, like one on top, and there's like a rotating knob. I tried that one. No, I opened. How do you open the even the trick? How do you open the rear compartment where the engine is? You have to know which way to push that little lock, you know. So honestly, day one I was clueless, and somehow they let me work first week. But I was trying to, you know, be proactive, ask questions, and I think I did okay. And so I thought I was doing okay, and it turns out no. Okay, we're gonna keep rolling, guys, if you're not falling asleep yet, because something interesting might happen. You know, a road is, so like my side is plowed, that side is total snow, so we might see some accidents. Wow, this is getting really bad. That's what you get in Calgary. See, and again, this is why you need winter tires. Because they, you know, I remember when I lived in Ontario, right? From 97 to 22, I was an Ontario guy. I always just chose all-season tires. And then a friend of mine who lives in Nisku here, near Edmonton, he says, oh no. He says, once you try winter tires, you will feel a difference. He says, I used to run all seasons as well, but then he says, in Alberta you need winter tires. But in Ontario, they do a much better job at cleaning the roads. You know, that's what I learned. In Alberta, even like Calgary, like a big city, as soon as the snow hits, it's a nightmare, because roads are not plowed, people are getting stuck, going into ditches, you know. And so roads are much worse in winter here than in Ontario. Oh, I see the yellow line, in which, you know, the middle of the road. That truck that just came from that direction was in my lane, but he's afraid to go. That's how you can actually get in a ditch in a big truck, you know. If your wheels go on the shoulder, I saw many accidents like that, you know, in the States. Like you'd be driving on a freeway and all of a sudden, of course, there's a divider zone, right? like you have 2 lanes this way, and then this divider, or like a some grass in there, right, with a ditch, and then there's 2 lanes on the other side, and there'll be trucks right there. So how do you end up in a ditch? And my theory is that, you know, they're passing somebody, it's nighttime, let's say, right, and it's snow, so you cannot see the edge of the road, and so your left tire or your wheel goes on the shoulder, and of course that causes a much higher resistance. Look at this, why is this so freaking close? You know, like they're just pushing me over there on the shoulder. I don't want to go there. And so once you hit the shoulder, which is dirt, much more resistance, it starts slowing you down, and it starts turning you towards the ditch, right? Oh man, I didn't expect the snow, you know, so this would make, it's like production value for the video, because actually I checked the weather. That's what I learned to do, you know, when you work outside, because, you know, when I was doing fueling, right, quite often, you know, it was not an easy job, by the way, because every time I come to a generator, I have to jump out, then jump back in. You know, like if you're just moving dirt, or you're doing stockpiling or backfilling, you're inside your machine, right? You're not moving. Your ass is glued to the seat. And then of course you can take a break. You can take a break. There's a bad railroad crossing here. So you can take a break, but during work you're sitting, you're not moving. But me, imagine in one day I would, you know, like in the first half of the day I would do, is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I would do like 12, 13 generators, light towers, and frost fighters, you know, in a matter of like 3 hours, and that's constant getting in and out of the machine. See, these guys are too close. The big trucks, they're trying, because their lane is not plowed, so they're moving into this lane. But if I go there, I'll get stuck. Wow. But we are getting close. I'm only 13 kilometers away from home. I look forward to, you know, parking my car, wanted to say machine, parking my machine and enjoying my nice little apartment that keeps increasing in price. So at least that's one thing I did right. I bought a piece of property. So of course, if I had some extra money now, I would definitely buy another apartment and just, you know, rent it out. Because again, it was on the news, and the news, they were saying that there's a big shortage of rental properties, you know. So many people come from all over Canada, and they were saying it's hard to rent, like especially a house, you know, if somebody has a bigger family, and it's hard to find a house for rent, you know. But the apartments are easier. I know there's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of rental people in my oh, here they finally plowed that side. See, but something happened with the plow. It did my side first, nothing on that side, and then it stopped here for some reason. think it's snowing right now. I think it was, no, maybe it is. Yeah, there is snow in the air. But you gotta admit, it's an interesting drive. But that's why, you know, I was happy to get that LOA. And because some guys were kind of like, I don't know, greedy. They were saying, yeah, we get LOA, but we want to keep it for ourselves. So they would drive, like, imagine this. But of course, this was like October. The weather was still okay. They would drive after 12-hour shift, let's say from Drumheller to Red Deer, which is like hour and a half. Or they would drive to Calgary. Or one guy was from Medicine Hat. That was also 2 hours. Like, imagine you drive 2 hours in the morning, or let's say hour and a half in the morning. Then you work 12 hours, and then again you drive hour and a half back. It's okay when the weather's fine, maybe, if you don't mind killing your car with mileage. But I know some guys were doing that, and so in winter you cannot do that, because instead of an hour and a half, it'll take you 3 hours. Like, you see a road like this? Normally, yeah, it would take me like 90 minutes. It's 125 kilometers, which is like 75 miles, but it would always take me like 90 minutes. But now, I think I've been driving, what is it, like 8:40 now? I started at 7, almost 7:30. Remember I was saying the safety meeting is about to start. 7:30. Actually, wait, 7:30 to 8:40, so no, it's not 2 hours, but still, you know, it's dangerous. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find that clip where the guy was coming towards me on the curve, and we're gonna put it in the beginning of the video. Like, my side seems to, somebody plowed it a couple of hours ago, but that side is not cleared. And over here, Google Maps shows slow traffic, and then it shows red when we approach 201. But boy, imagine me driving here in a Hellcat. If I kept that Hellcat, you know, because the only reason I sold it is because I didn't have a job, right? I couldn't afford to keep borrowing money from my line of credit to make huge monthly payments, right? And then I didn't have a job, and then I found a job, so now actually I could afford it. But on a road like this, driving with a rear wheel drive car, save 700 horsepower, it would be suicide, you know, even with winter tires. Like, this Jeep is perfect. 4x4, automatic 4x4. I can switch into snow, sand, rock. And what I like, basically when I was buying this, I remember the sales guy was very nice. He said, okay, what are your 2-3 major requirements for a vehicle? And I remember I said,